Yep, here it is. The Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody meets this evening in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A and 40B. For tonight, the public hearing is closed. The purpose of the hearing this evening, as it pertains to 40 Oak Street, is for the board to vote on a decision. Before we go any further, I just want to know if any of my board members have anything that they would like to say at this time. Okay. This is a voluminous record. This permit proceeding has taken well over a year. The record is detailed, and there has been a significant amount of material submitted to the board. There have been many concerns raised with the board, including important concerns voiced by the chiefs of both the fire and police departments, including the former chief of the fire department, Chief Pasden, as well as detailed concerns from the mayor, from abutters, from neighbors and city residents, and from many members of the City of Peabody and its various departments. The major concern is the extensive flooding that occurs at the site and the impact that this project will have for emergency vehicle access and the impact on traffic and adding to the existing congestion, plus and the negative impacts that this proposed project will have on the community overall. I'm going to read the specifics into the record. In December of 2016, Stephen E. Pasden, the chief of the Peabody Fire Department, who had in excess of 35 years of experience with the City of Peabody, reviewed the proposed project from both a fire safety perspective and an emergency management standpoint, and he likewise voiced concerns with the water pressure and fire department apparatus access in the case of an emergency. Among his concerns were the fact that the fire department will not have 360-degree clearance around the building in an already congested area to use the City of Peabody's aerial devices for rescue purposes. Moreover, Chief Pasden voiced concern about the unresolved flooding in the downtown vicinity of the City of Peabody, including the concern that the locust can go underwater, requiring a total evacuation of the 80 units in the building that is the subject of the proposed project. Additionally, the concern voiced by the fire department was that the proposed project will further burden and overload an already overbuilt area that, in Chief Pasden's 3+ decades of experience with the fire department, will, according to Chief Pasden, quote, be a significant burden, increasing the amount of residents the city will have to shelter and feed, end quote, in a flooding event. Next, Joseph L. Daly, the chief of Peabody Fire Department, in May of 2021, expressly echoed and reiterated Chief Pasden's December 21, 2016 remarks and concerns regarding the significantly adverse impacts that the proposed project will have with respect to fire exposure, hazards, inadequate water supply, access, flooding hazard, and added burden to the fire department's public safety response. Next, Representative Thomas P. Walsh, State Representative 12th Essex District, submitted a letter dated September 15, 2016, endorsing and supporting the conclusions of both the Fire and Police Department for the City of Peabody concerning the proposed project and the concerns raised by them. According to Representative Walsh's letter, placing 80 units on just over 1.5 acres of land will create a public safety hazard of great magnitude. This parcel lies in a floodplain, and efforts to evacuate both people and vehicles will be exacerbated by floodwaters and by the limited egress to the site on stormy days. Next, the City of Peabody has historically been known as a city that floods. The 40 Oak Street proposed project is located entirely in a FEMA flood zone, AE, and has experienced flooding on numerous occasions, including experiencing significant flooding on 2011 and on 7/16/2014, 10/23/2014, and 12/9/2014. In fact, on 12/9/2014, officials with the City of Peabody witnessed significant flooding at the site, as submitted previously to Mass Housing on 11/13/2016 in a printed email dated 12/10/2014. Staff also cited that Oak Street was flooded starting at 23 Oak Street, continuing down to Foster Street. This made Oak Street impassable. Oak Street is a one-way road with a traffic following pattern towards Foster Street northwesterly. Traffic was expected to either drive the wrong way down a one-way road or it needed to be rerouted down Sanborn Street. A police detail was on site at the intersection of Foster and Oak Streets, with Oak Street being the primary and only route of ingress-egress to the proposed project. This will create significant obstacles for emergency vehicles such as fire and police trucks to access the property in a flooding event. Thus, even turning minor rain events, the locus is known to experience flooding. In major rain events, the flooding is significant. Oak Street, which is the only point of entrance and exit to the proposed project, is a one-way street from Washington Street to Foster Street. The locust is known to flood during an average rain event and may reasonably result in 6 to 8 inches of water covering the majority of the site. Next, in 2016, then captain of the City of Peabody Police Department, Scott Richards, voiced concerns about the negative impacts, in addition to the flooding, that the proposed project will have on public safety. As voiced by Captain Richards, the proposed project will result in a substantial increase in the number of vehicles. Oak Street is a narrow one-way road that intersects Washington and Foster Streets. Increased vehicular traffic, both during the day and at night, will have a major impact on existing congested traffic patterns in the neighborhood. Next, in May 2021, these concerns were reiterated, including in writing by Thomas M. Griffin, the present Chief of Police for the City of Peabody. In particular, the addition of 82 and 3-bedroom units on the Elks property at Oak Street will bring along with it an estimated 120-plus vehicles. Those additional vehicles will inevitably generate several hundred vehicle trips to and from the proposed project site, which is located in an already condensed and thickly settled residential area. It is the opinion of Chief Griffin and Captain Scott Richards that the increased traffic from the proposed project and the associated and consequential issues that will stem from the increased traffic will have a significant and negative impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. Next, according to Chief Griffin, because Oak Street is a fairly narrow one-way street, the increased traffic pulling in and out of the proposed project site represents an increased risk for vehicle crashes, which would be most prevalent in the winter months. Presumably, most of the vehicles exiting the proposed project site will be exiting from Oak Street onto Foster Street. The increased traffic will cause increased traffic congestion and backups on Oak Street, especially during peak commuting hours and when children are being transported to school. The significant increase in the number of vehicles in queue to pull onto Foster Street represents a risk for an increase in vehicle crashes. It is reasonable to assume that some impatient commuters will seek alternative routes when leaving the neighborhood to avoid the increased traffic, especially during peak commuter to work and to school hours, and this will funnel these vehicles through narrowly, predominantly residential streets that are not suitable for the increased traffic. Conversely, the only way to access the proposed project site is via Washington Street to Oak Street. Therefore, especially during the afternoon commute, the increased traffic will cause significant backups on Washington Street as vehicles queue up to turn onto Oak Street from both the northbound and southbound lanes on Washington Street. Washington Street at Oak Street already has significant traffic issues, especially with Aborn Street's location that is in close proximity to Oak Street. The increased traffic from the proposed project site will only exacerbate this problem. Next, Chief Griffin expressed significant concern with the history of flooding at the proposed project site and the fact that while the buildings at the site will be elevated above the floodplain, the fact that the parking lot and access to the elevators will be below the floodplain is a major concern. Flooding of the parking lot, which is likely to happen, will mean that emergency vehicles will not be able to access the proposed project site, and first responders will have limited access to the building, leaving hundreds of residents at risk. Next, additionally, according to Chief Griffin, in his opinion, based on a review of the plans for the proposed project, the proposed buildings, roads, and parking lots are expected to consume the vast majority of the site. This leaves little to no room for residents to recreate and for children to play. It is a reasonable likelihood that the children who are expected to reside at the property will resort to playing in the parking lot or in and around the streets and roadways adjacent to the site, which is a recipe for disaster. Next, not only is the location of the proposed project entirely in a FEMA flood zone AE, but the rear portion of the proposed project site is a buffer zone to a wetland as flagged by William Manuel of Wetland and Land Management in March of 2014. This would require an order of conditions for the development in floodplain and buffer zone. Next, the City of Peabody Historical Commission, which is charged with the protection of local historic resources pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Paragraph 8D, expressed concern with the site layout and the massing and character of the proposed building as being inconsistent with the character of the historic neighborhood in which the project is located. The project site is adjacent to the Washington Street National Historic District, which is comprised of a streetscape of stately 18th and 19th century single and two-family houses on Washington Street and adjacent side streets. The houses are 2 to 3 stories and generally range from 25 to 35 feet in height. The lots are relatively small and in aggregate create a regular rhythm of residential scaled yards set fairly close to the street. In stark contrast, the main building of the proposed project is a rectangular solid 68 feet by 274 feet and perched above an open first floor designated for parking and floodplain storage. There is no articulation of the building volume to give it more residential scale. The proposed main building is 61 feet in height and only 27 feet from the rear lot lines of adjacent properties. The townhouse component is only 2 feet from the rear lot lines of adjacent properties, including the headquarters of the Peabody Historical Society at 25 Washington Street, the federal-style home of Revolutionary War hero Gideon Foster, built in 1810. Additionally, the proposed main building is only 42 feet from the rear lot lines of the neighborhood of mostly single-story homes on Sanborn Street, where it will tower over them. Next, thus, the proposed main building is completely out of scale and character with the residential neighborhood in which the site is located. The adverse impact on the abutters to the proposed project will be substantial, including causing shading, invading privacy, and increasing the overall mass and density. These negative impacts will adversely affect the quality of life for the abutters to the proposed project. Next. The site of the proposed project is directly adjacent to a wetlands resource within the same Zone AE Special Flood Hazard Area. The proposed project encroaches on and threatens this important natural environment resource. Next, the site of the proposed project is surrounded by narrow and primarily one-way streets where the exiting residents utilize available on-street parking. Congestion worsens in the winter with snow and snowbanks. When snowfall accumulates, the parking lot at the site will need to be cleared. This will impact the already congested neighborhood and surrounding streets that cannot tolerate any overflow of parking from the proposed project site. This will also adversely impact the ability of the City of Peabody to remove snow from the streets and sidewalks. There is also very little to no place at the proposed project to remove snowfall to. As a result, accumulated snow will pile up in the parking lot or need to be removed off-site. Both scenarios, according to Chief Griffin, are highly undesirable. According to Chief Griffin, the proposed project envisions 110 designated parking spaces. This amounts to 1 space per unit. This does not include parking spaces for anyone working at the proposed complex or for maintenance, people, and site management. The proposed project site is a close-knit, congested neighborhood which cannot tolerate any additional cars or an overflow of vehicles that the site will generate. Parking will become an issue and will impact residents on neighboring and surrounding streets. Because of all the reasons I have just stated, I am opposed to this project. I would like to call on the board right now for a motion to accept the denial a motion to accept the denial of this project.
I'll make a motion to approve the board's decision to deny the applicant's request to construct 72 apartment units in one structure with parking below and 8 townhomes with driveways, roadways, and associated infrastructure on a roughly 1.6-acre parcel called the Locus and Project Site in the R4 Ward 1 zoning district in the city of Peabody, also known as 40 Oak Street.
Second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Dan.
Yes, approved to deny.
Julie.
Yes, approved to deny.
Barry.
Yes, approved to deny.
Stephen.
Yes, approved to deny.
Fran.
Yes, approved to deny. Right now, that is the end of this. The application of 40 Oak Street has been denied. Thank you. I need a motion to accept the minutes of July 19th meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's it.